Welcome to the Kenney Show.
Hey, you guys, welcome to the Kenney Show. I'm super duper excited to be here today. And for those of you who watch the show regularly, my loyal watchers, right? I just want to say you probably have never noticed this before, but let me just point out. So for those of you who are listening, I'm literally pointing like right up off to the what side is that? The left side of my head at my skylights. Oh my God, you guys, for like over four plus years, I have had those skylights not framed out. It's a wicked long story. The carpenter who put them in never came back. But my uncle came yesterday and he framed them out for me. And I'm just so happy. You guys, it's the little things with me. It's the little things, but that was not a little thing. That was a big thing for me. So I just wanted to celebrate that my background feels even more like just better, even more better. Is that even proper English? I don't think so. Anyways, I love it. I just wanted to do a little shout out to my Uncle Rich for coming in the clutch and doing me a solid, doing me a favor. I love you, Uncle Rich. Thank you. So, all right. So look, this is going to be kind of short and sweet because I think I can make my point fairly quickly. And I always think one of the things that a great mentor does, one of the things that great mentors do, we do a lot of things. I'm not saying, I'm not trying to sound arrogant, like, oh, I'm a great mentor, but one of the things that a good mentor does is we save you time. Because if we've gone ahead and learned some shit, it's like we come back with the tools, we come back with perspectives, we come back and say, hey, this is the place where you might kind of get hung up. This is the place where you might get exhausted. This might be the place where you fall flat on your face, right? So we can come back with resources. We can send resources back. So it's one of the great things. So sometimes when I'm trying to deliver or communicate information, I'm like, if I can do it quickly and efficiently, I'm here to save time. So 2 days ago. No, what's today? Friday. Yeah. Okay. So 2 days ago, I was talking to one of my one-to-one clients, one of my spiritual mentoring clients, hypnosis clients in the Quest, right? So the Quest, for those of you who might be new to the show, is my program where I work with people for like 3 months in individual private spiritual mentorship and hypnosis. And it's like subconscious reprogramming, neuroscience, healing hypnosis, and spiritual mentorship. So one of my clients was talking about my podcast and how she's a loyal listener. And, even though she's working with me one-to-one, she continues to listen to the show each week. And she was talking about how, I don't know if it was a particular episode or whatever that had really spoken to her heart. And she was like, you have this way of talking about things that makes me or helps me to look at things differently. And it was a really sweet thing to say. And we were talking about it. And I said, well, one of the cool things about a podcast. Now, some of you might listen to this show like just over the airwaves. And what I mean by that is you don't have earbuds in or whatever, headphones on. You just turn that sucker on and you go about your business. And whether that's like washing the dishes or folding laundry or, doing shit in your house, having it as background noise, like whatever. But a lot of people literally like put their earbuds in or put headphones on, which is like, I'm literally then in your head. Like that's a really intimate form of communication, right? And it's so interesting too, because I saw it with my yoga students who for many years, right? Some people came to like yoga with me over 13, 14, 15 years, whatever. And they would always say to me, I'm going about my business and I thought a thought or I was about to do a thing or whatever. And I heard you in my head say, right? People always say to me, I always hear your voice in my head saying like whatever it is that they heard me say. And it's the same way with my podcast listeners. They'll say, and she lifted up a sheet and she showed me my client. She's like all these things she had written down like from the show. And we were talking just about how cool podcasts are and how much I love them and how I love being guests on other podcasts and just how powerful and impactful they can be. And so I said to her, she's like, I love your podcast. And I said to her, well, you have your own podcast. And, she just kind of looked at me like, are you having a senior moment? Like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean? I go, you have your own podcast. And she's like, well, no, I don't. I said, no, you do. I go, you have a podcast playing in your head all the time. You have your own voice in your head, inside your head, that is talking to you and saying shit and whatever, that's telling stories and whatever. I said, we all have our own quote unquote individual, podcasts that are happening all the time in our heads. That stream of voice, right? That stream of stuff. And we both started laughing because then we were like, she was like, but it's just not quality content. And I was like, yeah. So part of the work that we're doing together is that we're bringing better, right? Better stories, more new empowering beliefs. We're removing some of that old stuff. We're rewriting, right? Your story to your glory. We're rewriting some of that stuff. And it's a really positive concept. And so I was like, oh, I want to share it with my listeners, because always be aware, right? And it's like the same thing with like, quote unquote channeling, right? Or like hearing an inner voice. And, a lot of people may or may not know that A Course in Miracles, it's over there on my shelf. I'm pointing behind me, you guys, to my white bookshelf at my Course in Miracles book on the shelf. And it was a channel. That book was like a channeled work. That's why there's no author. There's no author on the cover. It just says it was, it was published by the Foundation for Inner Peace. But it doesn't say like on the cover, like quote unquote, who wrote it, because it's like a channeled work. And people always make a big deal about that. Like, oh, so-and-so's a channel, or this one channels messages. I'm like, we're always channeling. We all always channel. We're all always listening to some sort of internal voice. It's just which voice you are listening to. Are you listening to the voice for love? Or are you listening to the voice of fear? Are you letting the ego, right, run the show all the time? Or are you tuning into spirit? Are you tuning into your inner teacher? Are you tuning into that inner voice that is in communion with the divine or God or source or love, right? Like, which station are you tuned to? Which voice are you listening to? Which podcast are you downloading and listening to every day? And it got me to thinking about the brilliant and beautiful writer, Anne Lamott. So some of you might know who Anne Lamott is, especially if you're a writer. Anne has written like many, many, many books. Just Google her and you'll see. She's fantastic. I've been lucky enough to take some classes with her and study some stuff with her. But I've been reading her books for 1,000 years. And so like, I'm going to show you. So even like you can see my copy. I'm holding up my copy of the first book of hers I ever read. And it's called Bird by Bird. And the subtitle is Some Instructions on Writing and Life. And I'm holding up this book, and this was published. You can even see like my old school like handwriting, how I used to write my name up in the corner. And the pages are yellowed. That's how long I've had this sucker. So this was published in, let's see, 1994. So I got this book when I lived in Burbank, California, and it stayed with me for a wicked long time. And why I'm sharing this with you is when we were talking, my client and I were talking about this ongoing podcast that is always playing in people's head, right? Sometimes independently of your permission, right? It's all of a just sudden, it's like some shit from the subconscious is like coming up. Because we all have these patterns. We all have these habits of thought. And what spiritual mentorship and hypnosis and subconscious reprogramming and all this stuff does is it helps us. I always say that I use hypnosis to dehypnotize people from the stories and the thoughts and the shit that like just is not really being all that helpful to them anymore. But listen to how Anne Lamott talks about it. I'll never, ever forget reading this for the first time and how much it spoke to me. And you guys, it's so sweet because inside this book, I have this wicked old, and I remember I got this from Crown Books back in 1994. I think I got this when the paperback version like came out. And so you guys may or may not remember, they're called Blue Mountain Arts cards, right? And I have this Blue Mountain Arts bookmark and I'm holding it up and it's kind of like on this really textured paper. It's a little rectangular piece of paper and there's a little drawing at the top and it says, this is what it says. So Blue Mountain Arts cards are like famous for kind of having these really kind of like deep, introspective, like almost like little bursts of like encouragement or self-help, but deeply feeling written cards and bookmarks, etc. And this one says this, and there's a little painting of like a treescape. So there's a bunch of like pine trees in the background and some like purple water in front of it. It says this: you are a lover of words. One day you will write a book. And I'll never forget seeing this in the store and grabbing it. And I got it to go along with my bird by bird book. And I was like, oh my God, you guys, little 20 something year old me. And listen to this. This is so beautiful. It says, people turn to you because you give voice to dreams, notice little things, and make otherwise impossible imaginings appear real. You are a rare bird who thinks the world is beautiful enough to try to figure it out, who has the courage to dive into your wild mind and go swimming there. You are someone who still believes in cloud watching, people watching, daydreaming, tomorrow, favorite colors, silver clouds, dandelions, and sorrow. Be sacred, be cool, be wild, go far. Words do more than plant miracle seeds. With you writing them, they can change the world. And that little snippet is from a woman named Ashley, or a person named Ashley Rice. And I'll never forget seeing this in like 1994 and being like, yeah, I'm going to get this with my book, Bird by Bird. But here's the thing that in relation to always having a podcast. So thank you for indulging me there for a moment. I just have a little memory lane moment. But so Anne Lamott always talked about how in her head, there is a radio station and it's radio station KFKD. And this is what she says. I'm going to read just a tiny snippet. She says, I need to bring up radio station KFKD or K-fucked. It is perhaps the single greatest obstacle to listening to your broccoli. And what she explains what broccoli means as a writer in a previous chapter. She's like, for listening to your broccoli that exists for writers. And she says, then I promise I'll never mention it again. And she basically goes on to say, if you are not careful, station K-fucked will play in your head 24 hours a day, nonstop, in stereo. And she goes on to explain, like, so out of the right speaker in your inner ear will come an endless stream of self-aggrandizement and the recitation of one's specialness, of how much more gifted you are. And then like the other one, she talks about, not in the other ear, you're going to hear nothing but like self-loathing. It is so funny. But I just want to share this little passage because I think it relates to what I was sharing with my client. She said, the best way to get quiet other than the and let me say this, preface this, Anne's wicked funny. So she's using humor here. Okay. The best way to get quiet other than the combination of extensive therapy, Prozac, and a lobotomy is first to notice that the station is on. K-fucked is on every single morning when I sit down at my desk. And she's talking about sitting down at her desk to write, right? She goes, so I sit for a moment and then say a small prayer. Please help me get out of the way so I can write what needs to be written. Oh, please help me get out of the way so I can write what needs to be written. And then she goes on to say, sometimes ritual quiets the racket. Try it. And so this kind of relates to when I talk to my clients about establishing a DSP, a daily spiritual practice, because it is a daily spiritual practice that often helps us to quiet that chatter of K-fucked, that K-fucked, right? That like turns down the volume of that podcast that is not actually like helpful, right? That is happening in your mind. And I just love this when she's like, so this little thing, and this is something that I always say, right? So every morning I say, Please have me go where you would have me go, have me do what you would have me do, have me say what you would have me say. Please use me. And I'm always asking, like, sometimes I laugh and I just say, hey, please help me to be smarter today. Please help me to get the fuck out of my own way. Please help me not to be a deterrent to my own joy, my own happiness, my own peace. Please help me to go out into the world in an inspired way rather than going out into the world and inflicting myself on people, right? So you guys, there's 1,000 little tools that we can use to bring ourselves and our mind back to love. But first and foremost, we have to be aware that we always have a podcast that is going on in our head. We have these stories, these beliefs, these habits, these patterns of thought, these ways of being that interrupt the flow of love, that create blocks and barriers to our own awareness, as A Course in Miracles says, to love's presence. So doing the work, right? This is why I always say there's no better investment you can make than in yourself, than in your own self-knowledge, your own self-awareness, the expansion of your own consciousness, of knowing yourself. Why do I do what I do, think what I think, say what I say? And slowing down enough to pay attention to the fact that you do have a quote unquote podcast, right? Not necessarily my podcast, your own special podcast that you have been producing, writing, and speaking, right, inside your head for a wicked long time. And so it might be time to create a little bit better quality content. So maybe that's what, I have no idea what I'm going to name this one, this episode. Maybe it's about creating, quality content or something like that. So this is my encouragement to you. If you start to notice that the way that you talk to yourself is not very helpful, is not very healing, does not support your wholeness and your health and your well-being, it's time to do something about it. And you might not know where to begin. You might not know where to start. You might recognize that you've been trying to do it on your own for so long. And, I always say to my clients, hey, look, your best thinking is what got you here. So maybe it's time to look for a little bit of help. And yes, while we all have access to the answers deep inside of us, we sometimes don't know that we actually have the answers, and we certainly don't know how to access them. And this is what a good therapist or a good spiritual mentor or a good whatever, counselor, whatever it is that can help you to start to kind of unearth and connect to and tune into, dial into your own wisdom and learning different practices so you can start to kind of access that divine wisdom, right? That wisdom that exists not only within you, but around you, that tries to come through you and to you, that miraculous flow that allows us to heal. And there's so many tools, like I said, and I have, right? So for me, it was yoga and passage meditation and daily spiritual practices and hypnosis and havening. And like I said, I'm always learning even more. I just got done. I haven't told anybody really yet, but I just got done. I did my original first, obviously my certification in yoga, my certification in becoming a gateless writing instructor, certification as a spiritual mentor. And I'm now a certified hypnotist. And I've done 2 certifications now, and I'm going to be doing a 3rd training in January that I'm wicked excited about. So I'm always trying to understand myself, my mind, how the subconscious works, how I make decisions, what given my past, how maybe my trauma, the residue of some things, the way that my nervous system is wired, all these things create that radio station and create that podcast. So you guys, I hope this was helpful in some way to just bring some awareness to it. I hope it made you laugh a little bit. So ask yourself, so what is the title of the podcast that has been playing in your head lately? And can we create some more quality content? And if you need some help doing that, right, that's what I'm here for. That is my greatest joy in serving. And I always say that, the work that I do can feel a little bit intangible, like trying to explain it. But what's not intangible, right? What is wicked tangible is the results that I see my clients get. So if you are interested in doing this, and maybe you're not you're not ready for one-to-one work and something like the Quest or whatever, but I also have the Nest, which is my group mentorship program, which is my group spiritual community. And that sucker is $59 a month. So there's lots of ways to you can also obviously just keep listening to this podcast, which is a free resource, right? It's a little gift from my heart to yours. So you guys, I hope this was helpful in some way. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day whenever you're listening to this. And just know that I am cheering you on. I believe in you. I celebrate you. I can't, obviously from this podcast see you, but like I see you, like, you know what I mean? Because I understand, because we're all connected. We're all joined. And so, we all have our stuff. We're all going through our stuff. And I'm, one of my greatest joys in life is to continue to learn and to continue to gather resources and tools. And again, circling back, this is how, a mentor, a spiritual mentor can actually help you and save you some time. Is we can say, hey, have you thought about this? Have you read this book? Have you checked this out? Like, here's some tools. Let's try this. Let's practice this. So thank you so much for listening. Wherever you go. Oh, and like, I should probably tell you, so just go to KarenKenney.com, right? When you go to KarenKenney.com, you'll see all the different ways to work with me. You'll see how to get on my newsletter. You'll see, right, how to join the nest, how to, reach out about the quest, all that stuff. It's wicked easy. And here's the thing. If you want something bad enough, you will be resourceful and you will find out how to, take those steps to reach out, make the connection, and make it happen. So thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thank you for listening. And wherever you go, may you leave the people, the place, the animals, the environment better, and yourself. Leave yourself better too than how you first found it. Wherever you go, may you be a blessing. Bye.
Hey, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of The Karen Kenney Show. I super duper appreciate your time, friendship, and support. And look, if something that I shared from my heart today somehow landed in yours, I'd love to hear about it. So please tag me on Facebook or Instagram or IG stories or wherever the cool kids are hanging out these days, and let me know what your favorite part was or what you found most helpful. You can find me over at Karen Kenney Live. That's Karen, KENNEYLIVE. And if you're digging what I'm saying and you want to hear more, I'd be wicked grateful if you could go to iTunes and subscribe and leave a review, because you guys, that's how you'll help me to keep spreading the love. And if you can think of someone that could benefit from hearing this episode, please share it with them. I'd also love to stay connected with you. So if the feeling is mutual, please go to KarenKenney.com/freebie and download my free guide to building your spiritual team. Until next time, my brothers and sisters, keep living in the fearless flow. Know that I see you, I appreciate you, and I love you. And wherever you go, may you be a blessing.